In WWE, glory and downfall are often separated by just one match. You can walk out to the ring like a superstar, and just minutes later, be fired without even getting a chance to say goodbye. One small mistake, a backstage incident, or sometimes just bad timing is enough to end an entire career. These are real stories, shocking releases that came right after the final bell. Let's begin with the first name on this list. Dustin Rhodes and Blacktop Bully, fired after a match. One of the most controversial post-match firings came after a bout between Dustin Rhodes and Blacktop Bully at WCW's Uncensored event in 1995. The match featured a wild King of the Road stipulation, one of WCW's boldest concepts, where the two wrestlers battled inside a moving truck, and the winner was the first to honk the horn. The match was pre-recorded on a farm, and to add visual intensity, both Rhodes and Bully chose to use the blade technique, cutting their own foreheads to create real blood. While common in wrestling during the 80s and early 90s, at the time WCW had implemented a strict no-blood policy on TV to maintain a cleaner image compared to WWE. Because of that policy, their actions were seen as a serious violation. Immediately after the match, both men were fired without warning. What made it even more puzzling was that Rhodes later claimed they had received prior approval to blade before filming. This sparked speculation that the blood wasn't the real reason behind the firing. Backstage sources suggested WCW was simply trying to cut costs, possibly to make room in the budget for newly signed megastars like Hulk Hogan, who came with a massive paycheck. Whatever the true reason, this incident serves as a clear example of how thin the line is between pushing the envelope and crossing it. Even well-intentioned decisions meant to enhance the drama can end a wrestler's career instantly, with no second chances. Mr. Kennedy, fired the night he came back. Mr. Kennedy, whose real name is Cain Anderson, was once seen as one of WWE's rising stars. But in May 2009, just days after returning from nearly a year off due to injury, he was shockingly released, right after his big comeback match. On that night's Raw, Kennedy took part in a high-profile 10-man tag team match alongside top names like Randy Orton and John Cena. But one moment changed everything. During a belly-to-back suplex, Kennedy caused Orton to land awkwardly, right on his neck, an area Orton had previously injured seriously. Though the move didn't look too dangerous on TV, Orton felt Kennedy had been careless and had risked his safety. After the match, both Orton and Cena reportedly expressed concerns to WWE management, calling Kennedy's in-ring style unsafe. This wasn't the first time Kennedy had been accused of being reckless. Many fellow wrestlers had criticized his sloppy execution in the past, and this incident seemed to be the final straw. Vince McMahon, WWE's chairman at the time, made the call to terminate Kennedy's contract just days later, a move that stunned many fans. Looking back, Kennedy admitted that overconfidence and a lack of caution during that period played a major role in his WWE downfall. Though his time there ended sooner than expected, he managed to revive his career in TNA, where he became a two-time world champion, proving his worth on a different stage. Brad Maddox, fired over a single line on the mic. Brad Maddox, once known as the on-screen general manager of Raw, was released by WWE on November 25, 2015. The reason? A seemingly harmless line during a promo that crossed the company's strict PG boundaries. During a dark match in Indianapolis before a SmackDown taping, Maddox referred to the crowd as cocky pricks, a phrase WWE deemed vulgar and completely unacceptable under its family-friendly standards. The comment reportedly infuriated Vince McMahon, leading to Maddox's immediate termination without any warning. Maddox, whose real name is Tyler Klutz, began his WWE journey in 2008, working his way up through developmental. He even served as a referee before stepping into a prominent on-screen role. In 2012, he grabbed the spotlight by interfering in a match between CM Punk and Ryback, a moment that led to him being appointed general manager of Raw. However, that role only lasted until 2014, when his character was fired on TV. From that point on, Maddox struggled to regain a presence on screen and was mostly relegated to non-televised shows. At one point, there were plans to pair him with Adam Rose in a new faction, an idea Vince McMahon reportedly supported. That's why the firing came as such a shock to Maddox, who admitted to feeling blindsided and disappointed. His final WWE match was a dark match loss to R-Truth, a quiet and abrupt end to a 7-year run. This incident serves as a clear reminder that in WWE, Even an offhand remark at an untelevised show can cost you everything. The company makes no exceptions when it comes to protecting its image. Teddy Hart. Talent overshadowed by ego. Teddy Hart, a third-generation member of the legendary Hart wrestling family, was once considered a can't-miss prospect in WWE's developmental system. But his reckless attitude and lack of professionalism quickly shut the door on what could have been a stellar career. During a match in WWE's developmental territory, Teddy went off script and performed a series of high-risk aerial moves that had not been approved by his trainers. What was supposed to be a simple showcase of basic skills turned into a self-centered highlight reel. Right after the match, WWE made the swift decision to fire him on the spot, for disregarding both safety and structure. But the chaos didn't stop there. Just weeks later, at a Ring of Honor event in November 2003, Hart stunned everyone by performing dangerous flips off the top of a steel cage, after the match had already ended. The kicker? He hadn't told anyone he was going to do it. His fellow wrestlers were so outraged that they kicked him out of the building that very night. Teddy Hart holds the distinction of being the youngest person ever signed to a developmental deal with WWE. But his impulsiveness and refusal to follow direction made him a walking time bomb in the eyes of management. Despite having undeniable skill, he never managed to secure a long-term spot in any major wrestling promotion. The talent was real, but in Hart's case, ego always came before career. And that, ultimately, was the price he had to pay. Marc Mero. From promising star to a quiet exit. Marc Mero was one of WWE's most talked-about signings in 1996, debuting with the high-energy persona of Wildman Marc Mero. Later, he reinvented himself as the more composed, marvelous Marc Mero. Despite the character changes, he struggled to maintain momentum, especially as WWE entered the fierce competition of the late 90s. One major factor that stalled his career was the rising popularity of his then-wife, Sable. She quickly became one of WWE's most recognizable names, overshadowing Mero both in storylines and in crowd reaction. Even after aligning himself with Jacqueline in an effort to refresh his character, the change wasn't strong enough to revive his fading presence. In 1998, Mero competed in the Brawl for All tournament, where matches were legitimate fights rather than scripted entertainment. While it briefly brought him attention, it also revealed WWE had no long-term direction for his character. Over time, he was gradually phased out of main programming. His final match took place at the Capital Carnage event in the UK in December 1998. Shortly after, WWE officially ended his run, partly due to dissatisfaction with his in-ring performance, and partly because of backstage tensions surrounding his guaranteed contract. Ironically, the same contract that had made him a standout early on later contributed to his isolation behind the scenes. Although his contract technically ran until 1999, Marc Mero's WWE career had effectively ended by the close of 1998. Buff Bagwell. Fired after one disastrous match. Buff Bagwell's WWE career came to an abrupt end after just one televised appearance. On July 2, 2001, he faced Booker T for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship on Monday Night Raw. The match was intended to be a major moment in the storyline merging WCW with WWE, but it quickly spiraled into a live TV disaster. The crowd in Tacoma, Washington, known for its loyal WWE fanbase, was brutally unforgiving. Loud boos echoed throughout the arena, and chants of "This match sucks" filled the air. What was meant to be a symbolic showdown ended up being criticized as one of the worst main events in WWE history, both on-screen and backstage. But the poor performance wasn't the only problem. From the moment he arrived, Buff Bagwell was already under scrutiny for his unprofessional behavior. He reportedly clashed with fellow wrestler Shane Helms before the match, and things only got worse when rumors spread that his mother had called WWE management on his behalf to request time off. That move seriously damaged his credibility with higher-ups. Vince McMahon and WWE leadership quickly decided to cut ties. According to Jim Ross, who delivered the news to Bagwell, his party lifestyle and inflated ego were major reasons for his release. Just like that, Buff Bagwell's one and only shot in WWE was over in a single night. Eugene. A brief return and a predictable ending. In August 2009, Nick Dinsmore returned to WWE as Eugene, a character once known for his innocent, quirky charm that had captured fans' attention years earlier. However, This comeback quickly turned into one of the shortest in company history. Just 1 month after re-signing, he was released, immediately following his first televised match. That match aired on the August 10th episode of Raw, where Eugene faced off against The Miz, who was disguised as the Calgary Kid in a storyline where the winner would earn a WWE contract. Eugene lost, and The Miz officially secured his return. Behind the scenes, Eugene's performance failed to impress, but the deeper issue lay in Dinsmore's physical condition and in-ring shape. Reportedly, Vince McMahon was extremely displeased upon seeing Eugene show up to the taping looking out of shape and sluggish. In WWE, where appearance is everything, that was simply unacceptable. Despite efforts by the creative team to reintegrate the Eugene character into programming, the decision to release him was made immediately after the match. Some speculated that he may have also failed a wellness test, though WWE never officially confirmed that. The primary reason cited remained his lack of conditioning and below-par physique. This marked the end of Dinsmore's second chapter in WWE, closing a career path that, while memorable at times, ultimately ended on a quiet and disappointing note. Arn Anderson. A legendary career ended by one misstep. Arn Anderson is widely respected as one of the most seasoned veterans in professional wrestling. After WCW shut down in 2001, he joined WWE and became an integral part of the Backstage team. A founding member of the legendary Four Horsemen, Arn was more than just a wrestling icon. He was a trusted mentor to many younger talents. By early 2019, Arn was working as an agent, responsible for producing and coordinating matches for WWE talent. But after nearly 2 decades with the company, his long tenure came to a sudden end following a controversial incident involving Alicia Fox. At a live event in February that year, Alicia Fox reportedly showed up intoxicated. Despite recognizing her condition, Arn allowed her to perform in a match where she teamed with Mickie James and Nikki Cross in a losing effort against Bayley, Dana Brooke, and Natalya. When Vince McMahon found out, he was said to be furious and ordered Arn's immediate termination. While tensions had apparently existed between Arn and Vince for some time, this incident was considered an unforgivable mistake, especially in a company with strict policies against impaired performance. Letting a talent wrestle while under the influence was a serious breach, and as the producer responsible, Arn had to take full accountability. Following the match, Alicia Fox disappeared from WWE programming, and her contract status became uncertain. As for Arn, his sudden departure was a stark reminder of how unforgiving the wrestling business can be, even for its most loyal veterans. Not long after, Arn joined AEW and began working alongside Cody Rhodes. When asked about leaving WWE, he simply said, "I don't want to be somewhere I'm not welcome." A short sentence, yet one filled with emotion and quiet disappointment. The Ultimate Warrior. Fired immediately after a match with Hulk Hogan. The Ultimate Warrior was always a controversial figure behind the scenes in WWE. Despite his intense in-ring style and captivating look, he had a reputation for being difficult to work with, especially when he felt his personal interests were at stake. His biggest conflict with WWE erupted just before SummerSlam 1991, leading to one of the quickest firings in company history. Right before the event, Warrior sent a letter to Vince McMahon demanding an additional $550,000 in bonus pay for his WrestleMania 7 performance, and threatened to no-show SummerSlam if his demands weren't met. With the event looming, McMahon reluctantly agreed, simply to ensure the show would go on without disruption. Warrior went on to team with Hulk Hogan at SummerSlam 1991, facing off against Sergeant Slaughter, Colonel Mustafa, and General Adnan in a high-profile tag match. But the moment the match ended and Warrior stepped backstage, Vince McMahon fired him on the spot, a swift and decisive move meant to reassert control after being backed into a corner. Warrior wouldn't return to WWE programming until WrestleMania 8, but tensions between him and the company never truly healed. By late 1992, Warrior was once again released, this time for failing a drug test. Talented, charismatic, yet notoriously volatile, the Ultimate Warrior is a clear example of how even a top star can see their career collapse due to excessive demands or one poor decision. No matter how high you climb, no one is untouchable. Kurt Angle. When the body says it's time to walk away. Unlike many who were fired, Kurt Angle's departure from WWE was a decision he made himself. It wasn't due to backstage drama or disciplinary issues. It was simply because his body and mind had reached their breaking point. At the time, Angle was wrestling under severe physical strain. Multiple injuries to his abdomen, groin, and hamstrings, especially after matches with Rob Van Dam in the newly revived ECW brand, left him unable to recover properly. The final straw came after a brutal bout with Sabu, when Angle realized he couldn't endure the pain or pressure any longer. He arranged a private meeting with Vince McMahon. No gimmicks, no script, just raw honesty. During their intense conversation, they even revisited the angry messages Angle had sent during his struggles with painkiller addiction. Vince, known for being tough, recognized that Angle wasn't just physically broken. He was on the verge of emotional collapse. McMahon offered him extended time off to heal, but Angle declined. He felt that being moved to ECW, a brand known for hardcore wrestling, was a step away from the technical wrestling legacy he had built. As an Olympic champion with deep pride in his craft, he couldn't stay somewhere that didn't align with his values. Just weeks after ECW's relaunch, Angle officially left WWE. It was a difficult but necessary decision, to protect his health, preserve his legacy, and hold on to the identity he'd fought so hard to build. Not long after, he debuted in TNA, ready to start a new chapter. Cain Velasquez, big expectations, brief run. In late 2019, WWE saw a golden opportunity when they signed Cain Velasquez, the former UFC fighter who once decisively defeated Brock Lesnar. The idea was to reignite their real-life rivalry in a professional wrestling setting, leading to a WWE Championship match at Crown Jewel. To build up the storyline, WWE even had Kofi Kingston lose his title to Lesnar in under 10 seconds, a move that drew plenty of criticism from fans. But high expectations came with rushed preparation. Cain entered the spotlight without being fully ready, physically or technically. He was still recovering from a knee injury and had to wrestle with extreme caution. What was supposed to be a marquee match against Lesnar lasted just over 2 minutes and ended with Cain tapping out to a submission hold in his very first WWE appearance. After that match, Cain practically vanished. He made only one more appearance at a non-televised event before being released in April 2020, during a wave of budget cuts brought on by the pandemic. Several factors led to his release, from failing to fully disclose his injury during contract negotiations, to accidentally revealing in an interview that he was scheduled for the Royal Rumble, a clear breach of WWE's storyline secrecy. Despite the disappointing outcome, Cain Velasquez expressed nothing but respect for WWE, calling it a valuable and meaningful experience in his career. Peyton Royce, a solo dream cut short. Peyton Royce's release following her match with Asuka in March 2021 came under unexpected and puzzling circumstances. Just weeks earlier, she had delivered a passionate promo on Raw Talk, later known as the "My Potential Haunts Me" speech. In it, Peyton opened up about her frustrations over being overlooked and pleaded for a chance to prove herself as a singles competitor. She directly called out Asuka, the reigning Raw Women's Champion at the time, and asked for a match to prove she was capable of more than what she'd been given. Her emotional honesty struck a chord with fans, and the promo quickly went viral within the wrestling community. But according to former WWE writer Vince Russo, it may have also triggered an unofficial test from upper management. 2 weeks later, Peyton was booked in a non-title match against Asuka on Raw. Many believed it was the beginning of a new push, but the match only happened because another wrestler unexpectedly became unavailable due to COVID-19. Although Peyton gave it her all and felt proud of her performance, an air of uncertainty still lingered. In April 2021, she was suddenly released as part of WWE's roster cuts. While some pointed to her lack of standout moments, the truth was Peyton had struggled to find her footing since the breakup of the Iconics. Her departure was met with disappointment, from herself and from fans who had once believed she could break out as a solo star. Lince Dorado, when your voice goes unheard. In WWE, it's not uncommon for wrestlers to try and approach Vince McMahon directly to voice concerns about their careers. But not everyone gets a chance to truly be heard. Lince Dorado was one of the few who tried to break that barrier, and the price he paid was his exit. In September 2021, during an episode of Main Event, Dorado teamed with Gran Metalik in a tag match against Los Lotharios, Angel Garza and Humberto Carrillo. According to the script, Dorado was the one who took the pinfall, a decision that left him deeply frustrated. Up until that point, it had typically been Metalik who took the loss, so the sudden switch made Dorado feel like he was being subtly punished. But his frustration ran deeper than just the outcome of one match. As a lucha libre-style performer, Dorado felt that WWE never truly respected luchadors, often reducing them to flashy masks rather than recognizing them as elite fighting artists. After the match, Dorado attempted to speak directly with Vince McMahon to address his concerns. However, since this happened on a secondary show, his effort was seen as crossing a line. That moment became the breaking point. Tensions that had long been simmering finally boiled over, and both Dorado and Maddox, who had already been considering leaving, formally requested their releases. By November of that year, WWE officially parted ways with the two talented luchadors. It was a quiet farewell, but one that clearly reflected the growing divide between passionate performers and a system that sometimes failed to truly understand or value them. Enzo Amore, from cruiserweight glory to a sudden backstage fall. In January 2018, Enzo Amore was still one of the standout names on 205 Live, WWE's show dedicated to cruiserweight wrestlers. With the Cruiserweight Championship around his waist and an over-the-top, brash mic style that was impossible to ignore, Enzo seemed to be basking in the brightest spotlight of his career. But everything came crashing down overnight. His final match aired on an episode of 205 Live, just days before the 2018 Royal Rumble. WWE was actively promoting his upcoming title defense against Cedric Alexander at the pay-per-view. Then came a real-life bombshell. Enzo Amore was accused of sexual assault. The news spread quickly, causing a media stir, and WWE wasted no time responding. Just one day after his last televised appearance, Enzo was suspended indefinitely. Shortly after, WWE terminated his contract entirely. What made the situation even more chaotic was that his firing happened while the storyline on TV was still unresolved, forcing the Cruiserweight title to be vacated immediately. Both Royal Rumble and 205 Live had to scrap and rewrite plans at the last minute. Though a later investigation concluded that Enzo wouldn't face any legal charges and the case was ultimately closed, the damage to his WWE career had already been done. Backstage sources reported that WWE management was especially unhappy with how Enzo handled the situation. Most notably, that he hadn't informed the company he was under investigation, leaving them blindsided when the story broke. Since then, Enzo has faded from the mainstream wrestling scene. He's made sporadic appearances at independent shows and even dabbled in music, but the WWE spotlight has long dimmed. He was a rising star, until one controversy outside the ring ended his career the moment he stepped backstage. Zack Gohan, the brief journey of WWE's one-legged phenomenon. Zack Gohan was once one of the most inspiring stories ever to step into a WWE ring. As the only one-legged wrestler in the company's history, his 2003 debut captured the attention of fans everywhere. With an unbreakable fighting spirit and a surprisingly agile in-ring style, Gohan became a symbol of resilience. But the spotlight faded almost as quickly as it had appeared. His final match took place in October 2003 on an episode of SmackDown, where he faced off against the Beast, Brock Lesnar. It was a one-sided beatdown. Gohan was utterly dismantled, as if it were a brutal period at the end of his WWE dream. Not long after, WWE quietly let him go. There was no formal announcement, no tribute segment, just silence. Behind the scenes, multiple sources have claimed the real issue wasn't his ability, but his attitude. Despite his youth, Zack was reportedly seen as unprofessional and difficult to manage. His impulsiveness, inflated ego, and lack of maturity reportedly tested the patience of WWE higher-ups. And when he failed to impress in a high-profile match against someone like Brock Lesnar, WWE saw no reason to keep investing in him. Zack Gohan left the company quietly, closing the chapter on a short but emotional run, where even extraordinary perseverance couldn't make up for a lack of professionalism. The world of WWE is unforgiving. Sometimes, one match is all you get. If you found these stories interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another video.